There is a proverb that reads, "Good men must die, but death cannot kill their names." For most of us here today, 27-year-old Scott Winters, the police officer, the canine handler, the comedian, the friend, the son, the hero, will never be forgotten. We have a proclamation today. Whereas Scott Winters served as a police officer for the city of Pompano Beach until his death, which occurred in the line of duty. On July 29, 2000, marks the 10th anniversary of Scott's death. Officer Winters' positive attitude and dedication to duty earned him the special respect of both his fellow officers as well as his supervisors. The residents of the city of Pompano Beach extend their heartfelt gratitude to the family of Scott Winters and to his memory for the commitment and dedication Officer Winters put forth in protecting our residents in our city. And whereas the City Commission deems it appropriate to redesignate a park in honor of the sacrifice made by Scott Winters. Now, therefore, I, William F. Griffin, the Mayor of Pompano Beach, on behalf of the City Commission and its residents, do hereby designate the park presently known as Sunset Park to be renamed the Scott Winters Memorial Park, done this 28th day of July, 2000.
On behalf of the City of Pompano Beach, and especially on behalf of its residents, I am honored today to dedicate this beautiful park here on the Intercoastal Waterway to the name and memory of Officer Scott Winters. This park will stand as a permanent reminder to all who live here and all who visit Pompano Beach that there are dedicated officers sacrificing their lives every day of the week in the performance of their job. And on occasion, there will be some that do pay the ultimate price. Let us celebrate in his memory and cherish this beautiful site. It is but a small token for the life that was lost. I would like to read a short verse that expresses how I feel about this new Scott Winters Memorial Park here at Riverside Drive, Pompano Beach. A quiet time in a quiet place, a daily need for a moment's grace. And I would like to also present this plaque to Mrs. June Winters for the Memorial Day event here. Thank you.
Tomorrow marks the 10-year anniversary of Canine Officer Scott Winters' death. What a fitting tribute this is to his sacrifice. On behalf of the Pompano Beach police officers now serving throughout Broward County, I'd like to thank Mayor Griffin, Commissioner Kay McGinn, and the entire City Commission for endorsing this tribute to Scott. And a special thanks to Sheriff Ken Jenny and Chief Dan Wright and their respective staffs for their support in this endeavor. In addition, I would be remiss if I did not mention and acknowledge the work done by Deputy Mike Powell, Deputy Dean Myra, and Reserve Deputy Steve McDonald in their efforts to make this a success. Scott Winters was doing his job on that night 10 years ago. He followed his police instincts as he searched the streets of Pompano Beach for a suspect wanted for the rape and attempted murder of a young Pompano girl. Scott found and cornered the suspect as he was escaping the area. While Scott was communicating the capture of the suspect, the hunted turned on the hunter. In mere seconds, the struggle ended as quickly as it began, and Scott laid mortally wounded by his own gun that was taken from him by the suspect, and the suspect was once again on the run. It was my fate to be the second officer to arrive at Scott's side. Officer Mike Powell was the first to arrive, and already he was pleading with Scott to hold on. As I gazed into Scott's eyes and held his hand, I too urged him to hold on. I could sense his pain and his struggles to survive. At the same time, I saw in Scott's eyes not fear, but a sense of wonderment. It was as though he was struggling to ask a question and fighting to answer it. Conjecture would suggest Scott's question was why. Not why was he dying, but why he had lived. Such a question would serve as a reminder that a person fears not death, but death with insignificance. Scott's death was, as was his life, anything but insignificant. I was his supervisor at the police academy in 1987. I watched him breeze through the academy and onto the streets of Pompano. I can tell you without hesitation that Scott possessed a strong sense of duty, dedication, and honor. But more than this, Scott possessed a strong sense of humor, and all of these he shared with his friends and fellow officers. Scott was so very special, and that is why he will be especially missed. But more than that, his death reminds us that we, as police officers, too often hold the rose but feel only the thorn. The wounds this profession inflicts never seems to heal, and the pain that we see on the streets never seems to die. The daily chaos we are exposed to is never ending. We are the front line in the struggle between good and evil. We are the patriots on patrol. We see so much suffering and try to heal it. We see so much social injustice and try to right it. We see so much human weakness and we try to share our strength. It is no wonder that a police officer's life expectancy is substantially shorter than that of the average citizen. It is no wonder that this job has left so many of us so cynical. Yet, our struggle must continue, and our dream of righteousness must never die. For many of us, this job is all we have. Even after we retire, this job will live on inside us. Some say after we die, we are still on patrol. I cannot help but believe that although Scott's presence is gone, his spirit is still on patrol in the streets and alleys of Pompano Beach. Many hours after Scott's death, I finished my shift watching the morning sun break through the clouded eastern sky. As I listened to the surf crash onto the beach and felt the fresh warmth of a new day dawning, I was overcome with grief. I had lost a good friend, a fellow road warrior, and the Pompano Beach Police Department had lost its innocence. My grief was somewhat softened by the knowledge that before he died, Scott did answer his question, why? Scott died as he had lived, serving his fellow human being and making this world a safer place in which to live. Scott carried his cross to the mountaintop and into a better land. It is now our burden, each of us, to bear our own cross and carry on in a world that measures up so very less because Scott is gone. In the years that have passed since Scott's death, I have learned to accept and carry the burden of placing Scott in harm's way. You see, I was his supervisor. I took him off his detail and placed him on the perimeter. Each time I have driven by the place of Scott's final battle, I have recognized that place as hallowed ground. Scott walked into the field of fire and into our souls, and we became the beneficiaries of his sacrifice. If there is a lesson to be learned, let it be this: embrace each day and live it to its fullest. Always easy to say, sometimes difficult to do. Albert Einstein once said, try not to become a man of success, but rather be a man of values. I concur. Success is fleeting, but our values and our strict adherence to those values is everlasting. This park and its dedication to Scott Winters represents an everlasting tribute to Scott and his sacrifice. How fitting this is. To Scott's mother, June, let me say this. I remember well your son, Scott. I know well the sacrifice he made. I know that you, as do I, miss him very much. Those who knew him also remember him well. And now for eternity, those that visit this park will know and remember K-9 Officer Scott Winters.
To those of you that were in the Pompano Beach Police Department when this occurred, it was 10 short years ago, and all of us, whether we lived in Pompano Beach or not, recall the events and how startling and how shocking it was to every resident in this community. What I want to say today is that this sacrifice of Scott's is not forgotten and shall not be forgotten.